Hello everyone, welcome back to another Friday, another casual champion review. Fish, it's time for Nami, of course, and also you might notice that my bot lane partner is Lucian. That was not intentional, I promise you. I clicked on quick play to think maybe it would be faster because I'm playing support and it's a high priority role, and just so happened to get the infamous bot lane duo. Though I suppose that'll probably make this game a little bit easier. I haven't played Nami in a good 3 to 4 years maybe, so hopefully they'll make it a bit more fun. You know what's always fun though? Fan art section. Look at them fish. The fish. I'm gonna stop making that joke. Look at all those goobers. Oh, it's amazing. Thank you, fellas. I'm kind of surprised there even was this amount of it, considering I had to accept the little mini art contest for the plush, which, by the way, there's only like a couple days left for the plush. We fully funded it at the time of me recording this right now, but if you still want one, they're only available for a couple more days, and then it's gone forever. But thank you, fellas. Thank you so much, and hopefully enjoy the fish video. I feel like I'm going to get a bit of backlash on this one because my feelings about Nami aren't super positive. It's not like Nefiri where I actively am very disappointed by what she was going to be, mostly because Nefiri is a much newer champion. Nami, I think she's more held at because of how old her character is. God, Nami was released in 2013. This champion is over a decade old now. And she's held up remarkably better model quality-wise in that time. I just think design-wise, probably story-wise as well. We'll get into that. Hasn't held up as well despite her image in the League community as this I'm so precious little squid creature. But I suppose we can get into her lore first of all, which has not really changed in the 10 years that she's been around. So Nami is Vastaya, at least she's categorized as one now. I don't remember if Vastaya were as laid down as they were right now back when she was released, but she is part of the Mirai tribe of Vastaya, which is essentially mer people that live off the west coast of Mount Targon. And in their culture, they have what's known as the Tide Caller, the strongest and bravest of their tribe, whose job it is to keep the village safe by going into the depths armed with the Tide Caller staff that helps them to control water around them, and they journey down into the depths to collect an abyssal pearl. It's a very dangerous journey because of all the monsters, but it's for a good reason, because they trade in this abyssal pearl to the luminous wanderer of Targon's Peak, which is the aspect of the moon, Diana, and they exchange this abyssal pearl for a moonstone, and this moonstone, oh my god, oh, did you guys see that? I need to invest in a new CPU. This moonstone emanates a protective light around their village to ward off the monsters of the deep. So it's sort of an ironic thing that they have to purposely endanger themselves in close contact with the monsters of the deep to protect the rest of their people from the monsters of the deep. And Nami was one such Mirai who dreamed of becoming Tidecaller one day, but unfortunately she was denied the position because she was way too impulsive and irresponsible, a bit of a troublemaker. So when the time came to get a new moonstone, because they do fade over time, they need to replenish them. It's not just a one-time gig. Instead, a different Mirai by the name of Rasho or Rasho, Rasho sounds like a disease, and he was chosen as the new Tidecaller to go and collect the abyssal pearl. But weird thing is, he never returned. Days, weeks, until an entire month passed and he still had not returned, and this had never happened before. And because the light of the moonstone was fading, the Mirai were getting kind of desperate. So Nami, in her infinite wisdom, decides, okay, I can do it, I'll do it, I'm gonna go grab my mom's staff, which would offer her a tiny bit of protective light, and dove straight headfirst into the deep, where she made contact with plenty of monsters, though not quite as the stories had told her. These were a little different. Eventually, she did reach the bottom of the abyss, but found that there was a weird purple light. Turns out there's a void rift underneath their village. And at the same time, she found Rasho, who had been corrupted by the void, hence why he didn't return. And he tries to convince her, like, oh, peer into the light, Nami, become one of us. We will save the village with its light. But Nami sees past this illusion, grabs his Tidecaller staff, and runs away, dispelling the monsters, and does discover the abyssal pearl, hailed as a hero and dubbed the new Tidecaller. And so the next part of her job is to go up to the surface to go deliver the abyssal pearl so they can get the moonstone. But she goes up there and finds there's no one there except an elderly woman. And this elderly woman isn't the luminous wanderer she was told of. Apparently, the aspect of the moon had long fled Targon, and as such, they were helpless to create a moonstone for her. So Nami, determined now more than ever and filled with courage, decides, fine, I'll do it myself again, and uses the Tidecaller staff to create a torrent of water that allows her to traverse on land in a grand search for the luminous wanderer. And that's kind of all she's got right now. Ironically, in the whole time she's existed, the only other snippet snippets of lore she got was a comic and that little bit in Legends of Runeterra. But again, weirdly enough, all of that doesn't progress her story forward at all. The only lore Nami really got was explaining her backstory even farther. And I like the addition of the Void stuff, having it be all across Runeterra, because we've seen stuff in, you know, Shurima and Piltover and Zaun, and now he has some in Targon as well. The Void's everywhere. That's cool, but it also means Nami herself is a bit of an aimless character. She went off on this journey 10 years ago, and we haven't really seen any result of that. LOR tried to spice things up a little bit by introducing all the other Mirai, and we'll get to that in a second, but it also introduced Lotan? What's his name? Loto and Tama, that's who it was. But it confirmed that Nami is indeed in a polyamorous relationship with these two other Mirai. That doesn't really enhance her story at all. She already had her mother who was relying on her and her entire village, so just adding that extra bit of personal connection, it doesn't really add a lot to her story, but for people who wanted some poly representation, you know, there you go. I think it's hard for me to judge because I've got the ace brain, but for me, that's some of my favorite kind of representation, or at least it's the kind of representation I find that how can anyone get mad at that? Because it doesn't really impact her story at all. It's just there. Like, it's just a part of her in the same way that she has a crown, or someone, their character was that they like wearing t-shirts or a sweater. It's just a part of her character that exists. Okay, but on the upside, that the people who actually do really care about that representation, like, well, that's cool. I feel represented. One thing is she's kind of gross. And I feel bad for saying that because everyone talks about Nami like she's a cute little bean. And I'll say the one thing that I do actually quite like about her is her hair. I like that her hair looks like it's made of kelp. That's a fun visual motif. But other than that, I have never really cared for Nami's design. I think fan artists have taken Nami in a far more interesting direction than how she's depicted in League, mostly because they try to appeal to that cuter, bubbly side of her, which she's kind of lost a lot in League. That whole impulsive and bratty nature that she had when she's a child is completely gone. She speaks a lot more self-seriously a lot of the time, but I think it always kind of grossed me out because she is needlessly sexualized, like a lot of older champions are. And you could argue Nami's a mermaid, so sure, that makes sense. Mermaids are inherently sexual creatures, but Nami, the way they did it for her is just... why? Like, I'm sorry, it looks like a skin suit. It looks like she peeled off her own skin so she could reveal the breasts underneath. It's so disgusting. I'm an excellent Nami supporter. I mean, I'm gonna get critical of Nami design-wise, but I do like her gameplay a lot. She's definitely one of my favorites. I think my only enchanters that I like playing, probably Nami and Renata are probably the only ones I enjoy. It just felt weird to... oh, run, my sweet prince. Get out of there. You'll live this. Oh, wow. Wow, the whole team came, and I still got an assist. I think the reason it bothers me is not just because the actual effect of it just looks rather disgusting. Yeah, it looks like she peels her own skin off, but it's also because mermaids are predominantly sexual creatures in nature. That's the whole shtick. Them and sirens, right? They lure in sailors like, ah, look at me. I'm attractive lady in the ocean, Mr. Sailor Man. Don't you want to come over here with me? And then they kill them. The problem is that Nami is absolutely nothing like that. I think that's why I find it even weirder, because she does have that childlike aura to her. And like I said, with fan artists, a lot of the time they depict her in this more kind of cozy, cutesy style. The story paints her as this young and impulsive, in an almost sense like a teenager's hero's journey. We see this countless times, right? The teenager or young child is in a bit over their head, but wants to be an adventurer, to have the responsibilities of adulthood, and then slowly realizes those responsibilities by going on this grand quest and realizing adulthood wasn't all it's cracked up to be. That's how Nami always read to me. But then again, they try and overtly sexualize her and they go, oh no, actually she's like over 100 years old, guys, which that really kind of backfires in her, the whole way they made her story. It's just the whole thing with having the exposed breasts and then giving her that exaggerated hourglass shape by giving her armor only on her thighs. To me, it just reads as desperate. Like, oh, please, we have to make sure that everyone who plays this character finds her attractive. That's the only way you can sell her. And I feel like I have to say this 1,000 times because there's always some comments about this, but I don't have a problem if you want to do characters like that who are inherently about that aesthetic. It's just when you do that to a character where it completely clashes with their personality, and hero's journey, it becomes very distracting and just feels like pandering. And also because that's what every other mermaid does. Another mermaid who is sexy. Wow, never seen that before. Nami just feels like, to me, she would have been a very fun opportunity to do an inversion of that cliche. Whoa! But instead, Nami is just kind of an embodiment of that cliche. Wait, I have a Diana on my team as well. I just realized. Man, this whole game is just lore accurate, both to the actual Runeterran universe and League of Legends lore. And I think that whole idea of her being very surface level in design is only exacerbated by what they did with not her, but her followers in Legends of Runeterra. Because, oh my... but the Mirai Great Mother, or with Tama, or with Lodo, like, there is so much variety and different avenues they took in the whole merfolk idea. Because Nami is the most stereotypical by the numbers mermaid. If she didn't have the crown, there wouldn't really be anything to her. I guess the kelp hair as well. I like the kelp hair. And if you see in Nami's original comic, all the other Mirai are just clones of her. But in LOR, Loto is this giant red jellyfish. Or you have the Mirai Warden, who she actually has legs despite also being a Mirai. The Great Mother really hunched over with all these anemone aspects to her face and her back, and the giant cape that looks like a manta ray. Like, oh my god, there's so many cool things and uses of different marine biology. It's a merfolk. They don't just have to be human with a fishtail. But I think Nami, admittedly, again, she's an older champion, and I think at the time, even in modern League, I don't know how far they could go. I mean, if you look at Tama and how long and wavy she is compared to Nami, it's not even comparable. But also, how would you make a model like that work in League of Legends? I'm not sure if you can. It's the same reason why they sized down Aurelion Sol. He's not nearly as long as he is canonically. Nami is stuck because they have to do this. God, I still, man, the skin suit breasts, like, it's so... You guys already know I'm not the biggest fan of pointless fan service, but at least don't make it look like she's peeling herself open to show it. It's not even distracting, it's just horrifying to me. But I think if Riot tried to incorporate those more LOR-esque designs into League, it wouldn't really work. It would be a bit too visually cluttered, and also trying to make it so she's not gigantic to incorporate all those waving fins and tentacles. It would look kind of awkward in League. They tried that a bit with Coven Nami to have her have 3 tentacles instead of just a normal mermaid fishtail, but you know, they couldn't go beyond 3 or else it would be too chaotic and wouldn't look like the League model. So another classic case of a champion being held back by being in League of Legends, unfortunately. And it made me a little sad that they didn't try to explore her visual language in the same way they did with her followers in LOR. She still looks pretty much the exact same, and especially with that artwork, she easily, to me, just looks like the most boring out of every Mirai on offer, in the same conundrum that Alistar is in. I do find Nami more interesting than Alistar, just purely from a visual standpoint. Like I said, she got the kelp hair and the ceremonial crown. Alistar is just a Minotaur. But it's just another case of LOR not being restricted by League of Legends. They can go a lot more wild and crazy. And I think it enhances the biodiversity of these different species across Runeterra. It just unfortunately has the bad side effect of making the main League champion look very uninteresting in comparison. I think we can talk about Nami's gameplay a bit. And like I said earlier, her and Renata are the only 2 enchanters I actually enjoy playing. And I think you can probably tell what the pattern is, right? Because I've talked about how much I don't enjoy playing Lulu or Soraka or Janna, because to me, enchanter playstyle is inherently very passive. They're all functioned primarily around reactive gameplay and not proactive. If someone's diving my ADC, okay, shield them or knock the enemy away. But Nami, I find her interesting the same way that she can have these tools to be reactive, but they are also very proactive. Mostly because she's one of the few enchanters that actually has reliable crowd control that can be used as an engage rather than, hey, get away from my guy, using the ult for a big engage or the bubble to catch someone out, pick someone off. I think it's the problem that I've had with enchanters. The class inherently just feels like the impact is so invisible. But with Nami, because of these direct impacts on the enemy, I did it. I didn't do it. Editing NickyBoi here because a thought just occurred to me that kind of summarizes my whole feelings on Nami and enchanters. And that's that playing enchanters, because the way they're designed make me feel more like I'm an accessory to my team, whereas Nami's design makes me feel like an actual part of the team. It makes her far more engaging to me. And also, I think it works better for her story. If they made Nami some completely passive character that just sits back and buffs her team, it wouldn't really match her story. But because she has these proactive tools, because that's her journey about trying to venture beyond her comfort zone into the outside world, being able to at least try to fend off her opponents, that makes perfect sense. Not that she should be a full AP mage or something, though I think some people do actually dare to try going full AP Nami. Maybe I should have done that. I don't think that really matches her either, because she's not super experienced. She kind of got a lucky break when diving into the abyss. She's very headstrong and determined, but doesn't have the life experience of battle and combat like some of her fellow Mirai. But there's also the novelty of having this mermaid running around on land and using water in different ways to buff her allies, summoning a torrent of waves. I think compared to, what's the other water character that was going to be in the game? It's not Hydreigon. That's a Pokemon. Hydration or something along those lines. Hydra something. It was an old scrapped League of Legends champ. I know it was Hydra something. For the life of me, I'm struggling to remember what his name is. But Nami, I think, is still a pretty good execution of a water-based champion. And I think skins probably, I mean, I already mentioned that Coven Nami is just, oh, Coven Nami is, oh my god. That Graves is a little fed, I think. Oh, well, game's over. All right. Well, I didn't even know you could surrender with only 3 people. And my client crashed. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you for watching this week's Casual Champion Review, everybody. Ironic that I also talked about Diana. There was 2 Lucians, and there was also a Nasus in my game, because next week is also Nasus. So thank you for watching, everybody. Hopefully you enjoy Arcane coming out next weekend on the Saturday. And hopefully I'll see you for the Nasus one, all right? Have a good day. Goodbye. Fish!